Greetings, architects and investors. Welcome to Lusuerto. Let us begin with the question, what is the project brief?
For the Architectural Design 5 project, the goal was to produce a sea multimodal water transport system in one terminal. The objective was to design a point of connection for a transport route specifically on the waters of Southeast Asia.
In the field of freight, multimodal transport is defined as the use of several means of transport to convey goods or passengers to their final destinations. Accommodation should be open for both domestic and international travel. Project objectives. Throughout our research and analysis phases, as well as the design stages, we are to be guided by our formulated project objectives. First, to produce a human experience-based architectural design. Second, to improve the transportation of goods and people across the sea. Third, to open the gates to Lucena City and Quezon Province's tourism.
Understanding the Philippines and the significance of ports. Understanding the Philippines and how ports are crucial for building connections across the archipelago and potentially the continent. Thanks to its geography, such a unique location has made the Philippines the commercial, cultural, and intellectual hub of Asia from the dawn of history. Today, it is still an ideal hub for travel and trade across Southeast Asia. In an archipelago country such as ours, ports are crucial for transportation and facilitation of goods movement. These hubs are the foundation of the economic prowess of any coastal area. It's been proven and recorded that these bring varying degrees of benefits to the economy, the country, and investors.
Now, zooming into Lucena City, its history includes its progression from town to municipality to a highly urbanized city.
The chosen site. The site is in the port of Lucena, also known as PPA Port. In the present, the site measures 3 hectares and it is near the PTFA fish port. It is accessible by the Dalahican Road. Site plan. For our plan, we extended the port from 3 hectares to 21.75 hectares. We extended towards the sea and the east part of the port. After we extended, we put floor openings for water viewing and lessening the floor area. We also made the docks horizontal to the site in a convex form to maximize the movability of the water transportation. For proposed spaces, we first thought of establishing different kinds of spaces such as private, semi-private, and public space. After that, we segregated these spaces for indoors and outdoors. That is why we came up with a site plan with 6 main areas: parking, tourism, service area, lodging, terminal, and recreational areas. For entry points, after establishing the spaces, we began to plan out the entry points. There are 3 kinds of entry points. The green are the general access points where everyone are allowed to enter and exit. Orange is for service entrances which are only accessible for staff, emergency personnel, and investors. Lastly is yellow for securities checkpoints and Egypt stations. In this entry point, Egypts are free to enter as well as vehicles that pass the security checkpoints. We also have roadways. Accessibility of the flow of the project is one of the focus of our plan. Since this is a transportation project, the roadways are really the focal point. Here's the dimension of our roadways. It has 4 lanes for vehicles, 2 bike lanes on both sides, 2 sidewalks on both sides, and ample spaces between the 3 paths. There are also greeneries in the boundaries for added shade. For vehicular lanes, ambulances, fire trucks, buses, and cars are able to fit in it. For intersection, we have the driveways where vehicles are supposed to drop off the passengers. As you can see in this map, the driveways are situated at the front of the terminal. We also have the service road, which is the path that is assigned for service vehicles. The site will also have a sign showing the Y junctions, turn ahead, two-way traffic, and no public entry. For walkways and crossings, we have the signage for crossing lanes and pedestrian lanes in the port, which will be seen much closer in the latter part of this presentation. Lastly, as mentioned above, for the roadways, there are walkways on both sides of the road.
Stakeholders. The term stakeholder refers to anyone that has an interest in a project and can influence its success. Stakeholders are an important aspect to consider when designing a project. As a port project, one of our focuses is to map out the flow of every entity that will be entering the port, especially our stakeholders. Our stakeholders includes customers, locals and commuters, investors, labor and supply chain partners, as well as economic development agencies. Lastly, authorities, government officials and regulators with port communities. User movements. Human entities. We also have entities that are present in the project and the circulation that is in place for them. First, we have human entities, which includes customers and passengers, cyclists, staff and crew, port authorities, investors, and emergency personnel. For passengers and customers, here is their designated behavior on site. They have access to everything, noting that some passageways have a security inspection. The only thing that they can access is the docks. They can only access it by passing the terminal and can only happen when they are checking in or departing from their designated ships. This is for cyclists. Since we expected that there would be a lot of vehicular traffic in the port, we wanted the cyclists to be safe. Hence, we restricted their pathway to the north side of the site, near the main roads and the recreational areas. The pathway for staff and crew, port authorities, investors, and emergency personnel are the same with generally equivalent access to all spaces. Mechanical entities. For mechanical entities, which are the tricycles, e-jeeps, taxicabs, or buses, here are their circulation. For tricycles, their pathway is the same as cyclists. We want them to be in an area that is not frequently used by most four-wheeled vehicles for traveling. For e-jeeps and taxicabs, they have the same pathway except that e-jeeps have stations per security boundary. Lastly, we have the buses. Since buses commonly carry heavy baggage or delivered goods, they have direct access to the docks.
Elements of the site, are areas that we wanted to emphasize as important to the overall flow of the port. First, we have the Egypt stations. As discussed earlier, each station is located near security boundaries as well as proximity to the main entrance and exit. Each Egypt station contains a waiting shed, a water station, and a Wi-Fi booth. We also have Daud stations at the entrance of the port. Spread out through the port are public toilets that the users can use. We also have crossing lanes that are important for the safety of the users. For cyclists, we have designated parking. Last but not the least, we have seating area and vending machine for those that are exploring and walking through around the port.
The project aims to be a comfortable, safe, and efficient space for the human experience by improving the transportation of goods and people across the sea through logistical and operational planning, complementing curated interiors, reducing delays, and addressing circulation issues. Finally, it opens up the gates to Lucena and Quezon's tourism. The final design is a functional port that becomes a great experience to be sought out by tourists and locals alike.
Luz Huerto. To conclude our presentation, we coined a name that stems from the context of this project.
The Huerto is derived from the fusion of the name of the chosen site, Lucena, and the Spanish-borrowed Filipino word for ports, puerto, due to the deep connection of the city to its Spanish history and its Filipino spirit. It is a gateway to connections far beyond its shores.
Following the vision of the project, the final design is a functional port that becomes a great experience to be sought out by tourists and locals alike. This will surely benefit potential customers, investors, and even administrative sectors.